managed the Back to Godhead department. He's engaged in counseling among the congregation and temple devotees. He's also participated in Harinams and Japa retreats. He's the ISKCON representative to the South African Hindu Mahasabha. He was initiated in Vrindavan at the Krishna Balaram Mandir by His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj on the appearance day of Radhakund. He's currently residing at the Sri Sri Radha Raghunath temple, and he's responsible for the maintenance and building projects. He was also recently appointed by the GBC to serve as the National Secretary for Namibia. He's also the director for the Richards Bay project, and he's helping to complete that temple as appointed by Senk. He's also been appointed by the GBT to serve as the director for Food for Life South Africa. He's a very learned scholar, and it's our pleasure to hear from him today. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Y'all can hear me? Everybody could hear me?
Yes, thank you,
Can
Prabhu. We can. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, sure. So I thought we'll have an open discussion on a topic it's a very broad topic. But I'll just speak a little bit, and then we can hone into some discussions with all of you. I just started reading a few verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which talks about two very exalted devotees, Dabir Kash and Sakra Malik. They were Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. And this is verse from the Madhya Leela, chapter 1, verse 208. I'll just read those verses. My dear Sakra Malik, from these days your names will be changed to Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatan. Now please abandon your humility, for my heart is breaking to see you so humble. Then the next text it says, that's 209. You have written several letters showing your humility. I could understand your behavior from those letters. By your letters, I could understand your heart. Therefore, in order to teach you, I sent you one verse which reads as follows. This is an interesting verse. If a man is attached to a man other than a husband, she will appear very busy in carrying out her household affairs. But within her heart, she is always relishing feelings of associations with her paramour. I had really no business in coming to Bengal, but I've just come to see you two brothers. Everyone is asking why I've come to this village of Ramkeli. No one knows my intentions. It is very good that your two brothers have come to see me. Now you can go home. Do not fear anything. So anyway, this is Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami are very important personalities in the Krishna consciousness movement. Now they hold very high positions in the spiritual world and in the material world. When they were present as Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, as Dabir Kas and Sakra Malik, but they were in a Muslim government. At that time, it was Mughal rule, Muslim rule, and Rupa and Sanatan were serving them, and they were like considered to be in one sense Muslims. But here, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met them, and he acknowledged they were their old servants, they were his old servants, and then he changed their names, and he was requesting them to stop their humility, because they're so humble. And humility is not, I don't know, if we all have an idea what humility is. But let me hear from you what your definition of humility will be. What would be your definition of humility? Well, Prabhupada gives a definition, and And the acharyas, give different definitions, but one definition which Prabhupada gives in the Gita is when one is not hankering for the satisfaction of being honored by others. And that's not an easy thing to do. It's not so easy because we're all looking in some different ways for recognition. Now, these two brothers were so humble, and because of their humility, Lord Chaitanya gave them, sent them a letter, and in that letter he kind of put in a few lines which says how a married person who's having a relationship with paramour is thinking always of the paramour, but he'll do everything perfectly. And just like somebody's having it in the material world, somebody's having a relationship other than the wife with a paramour, they will do everything perfectly without any shortcomings, without hoping that the husband doesn't suspect that anything is going on. So that in the material world it is like that. But here Lord Chaitanya has revealed something to them that if you do this, what will be what will you get? If you constantly think of Krishna, but you do your normal ordinary activities, but your heart is somewhere else. So the humility, in a sense, is like can only be gained when one is totally surrendered to Krishna, when his heart is submerged into thinking of Krishna. Now, otherwise, it's not possible, because we may have different ideas of humility, and we'll listen to you all just now. But it's very subtle how you will look for attention in different ways. We all have that. It's like, I'll give you a practical example. When somebody is praising you for your activities, you might reject it. You will say, no, it's okay. No, it's not true. Don't worry about it. You may reject it. But if they tell you, if they start talking about how humble you are, that you're very happy to hear. Is that not true? But that's not humility. So humility is that when one is totally submerged, his heart is with Krishna, he's not governed by anything else. It's all his senses is controlled, super control, and he just surrendered to Krishna. That, in essence, is true humility. And we find this in Rupa and Sanatan, that they took initiation. And after initiation, there's a process. I won't get into the details now, but I just want to see how this discussion pans out to be. And we can discuss more. And let me hear from you, what's your thoughts on humility? I'll leave it open, and we can also discuss. Guru Premi,
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
I'd also read once, I think Srila Prabhupada had said that humility is that we have this this conviction that no one and nothing can save us besides Krishna. And I understood that to mean that when we are full of pride in our own abilities and the abilities of the people that we are surrounded with to assist us in all kinds of dangers and situations, then we don't want or we're less likely to surrender, to do what you're saying, to surrender to Krishna, because we don't feel like we need anything from him. So without that complete dependence on him for protection in all circumstances, we'll never develop that surrender.
Yeah. Our idea of humility, yes. When we totally surrender to Krishna, then he takes full care of us. But if we partially surrender to him, then he will partially take care of us. But then they will be, we will be faced with other challenges, with ego problems and different things, different things. But even in the verse itself, in the Sisastikam, there is the third verse of the Sisastikam, which talks about humility. Chinadapi sunichena, karur eva sahisnena, amanina manadena, kirtanya sadahari. So one should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So therein it shows that that to reach such a stage, it's quite a high stage. Even within our movement, we may not have many people on this level. This is a very high stage itself, where one is becoming more tolerant than a tree. What does that mean? It means that the person is chanting offenselessly. And when he's chanting offenselessly, he's also overwhelmed with the thoughts of others' well-being. He's always concerned about other people's well-being. So this is something that defines his tolerance level. And how do we develop this attraction? How do we develop this attraction even to chant? It's quite a challenge. So it comes, it comes with deep prayer, and then the results are like you become free from this false prestige, and that's the key, false prestige, because somehow people are proud in different ways, and these are all impediments. We're proud of our beauty, our birth, our so many different things. So when one actually is proud of these things, birth, beauty, strength, and his social status in the material world, then it's very, very difficult to chant purely. Even just the fact that you think I'm a Brahmin, just the fact that you say I am a Brahmin, and you're proud of being a Brahmin. So that also it's just so dangerous that will affect the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. As long as we have false prestige, we cannot chant all the time. And the other thing is offering respects to others. Just like in your own material life, there is people are demanding respect. Like I worked in the education field for many decades, and one of the things that in the apartheid times, there was a gentleman who worked in our election section at that time. It was an Indian person, and we are meant to, when the European supervisors would come, everybody was meant to stand up to acknowledge their presence and show respect to them. So offering respect to others. But this person, he didn't do that. And because he didn't do that, then it held his upward mobility. He was censured in many ways, and so many things were done to him. So when after apartheid times, when the new government took over, he would walk into people's office and say, he would summon people to sit down, don't stand up when he walks in. And because just to he was always mocking the what was done to him. and what the whites were doing to the Indian people at that time. So we see that, you know, the demanding respect is not a sign of humility, and but rather we offer respects, and respect is done with a lot of love and affection. For example, you know, when you bow down to somebody, there's it's the person actually feels good that you know, not good. The person also feels that this person is humble, and you yourself can also feel that. But if the person feels, the person that you're offering respect to, you're bowing down to, feels that, well, you know, it's good that he's bowing down to me. He has to bow down to me. I'm more advanced than him. And that is not a sign of humility. In Vaishnava culture, bowing down to other people or just anybody you can bow down to, because Krishna is in the heart of everybody. And really is, you know, when you're bowing down, you're actually bowing down to the super soul. But it could mean that you're bowing down to the person also. It could imply that. It's a little bit inconceivable or achintya, you know, it's one and different. But if you have these thoughts that, you know, that person ought to bow down to me, you know, I'm more superior than the other person, and that creates a lot of problems, a lot of challenges in one's life. And then your humility, because then by not being humble, it affects the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, because we can't chant it constantly. We won't be able to do that, because the verse that I read, he was showing that how the letter that was sent, but within the heart, he is always relishing the feeling of association with the paramour, always thinking of Krishna. But when one is not humble, when one is thinking of oneself very proud, then these, unfortunately, we're not on the pure level as yet. And we'll be battling on the lower levels of Krishna consciousness. So having said that, I spoke a little bit, so I just want to hear you also, Vijayalaya. Does anybody has any questions so far that we could, or you want to raise any point that we can discuss further?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So I'd just like to make a point that actually we should see ourselves as humble servants of Krishna, in that the soul is so minute, right? 1/10 of the point of a tip of a hair. So in that way, we can see ourselves as very minute compared to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than the greatest. So I was thinking on those lines. And we also find in the Chaitanya Charitamrita how Haridas Thakur demonstrated this humility by, he won't go into the Jagannath temple, and he would always offer respects to Lord Jagannath from a distance. And just by seeing the chakra on top of the Jagannath Mandir, so he, in this way, he demonstrated his humility by not, because he was born in a Muslim family and he was not allowed into the temple. So in this way, he remained humble, and he would always take darshan from far. Then also Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself displayed humility in that he, when he went to South India, he went to meet Prakashananda Saraswati, and he sat where the shoes were, right? And he was displaying he was so effulgent that all the Mayavadis there, they asked him, you are such a beautiful sannyasi, and you took sannyasa at such a young age. And why are you sitting there? You should come and join us. So in this way, because he won their hearts, because they were against personalism. So in this way, when they appreciated Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then there was some Agyata Sukriti in that. And this is how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu won them over, you know, and he was able to basically turn all those Mayavadis into devotees of Krishna. So those were my two examples. So maybe you can comment on this, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, no, those are really good points, Rangadevi. You know, see, sometimes, you know, when devotees are very humble, you know, humility in itself, you know, one of the like the which Prabhupada says, you're not hankering for the satisfaction of being honored by others. That's like a very difficult thing, you know, as I said, to achieve. Because this verse that we're talking about, even the third verse of the Shastastika, you know, where Chinabi Suniche now, that is on the level of Nishta. It's a you know, a very high stage where somebody is really steady, fixed. You know, he's really fixed in his server, in his program or his development in Krishna consciousness. He's very fixed. But then, even when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in the house of Advaita Acharya, you know, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied to Haridas to check his humility, because that sight of your humility agitates my mind. You know, it's you know, that humility is so deep, and there's a discussion in the Madhya Lila chapter 3. You know, it's a long discussion, but that's just one verse where somebody feels themselves like the lowest among men. You know, like here, even in that text 195, Madhya Lila 190, text 195, chapter 3. Because I'm the lowest among men, I shall not be able to see you. How shall I maintain my sinful life? Because Haridas Thakur, you were saying, could not see Lord Jagannath, but then he was seeing Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya is Radha and Krishna combined, and Jagannath is Krishna, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radharani. But within Lord Chaitanya is both Radha and Krishna one, and one can have both. You can have Radha and Krishna experiences. Not that if, you know, he has to see the chakra or he has to go into the temple, but he was meeting, you know, Radha and Krishna every day. So that you know, that you could see, because the Lord was taken by his humility, and it said there that even Lord Chaitanya is stopping Haridas Thakur. That's my take. I think, yeah, that verse is yeah. Let me see, Madhya 195. Yeah. Yeah. Please check your humility. Just the sight of your humility very much agitates my mind. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu assured Haridas that he would place a petition before Lord Jagannath, and he would certainly take him there to Jagannath Puri. Yeah, but it's not that Haridas Thakur was not, you know, he was not seeing Krishna, but he was seeing the highest form of Krishna, of Lord Chaitanya, both Radha and Krishna combined. And it depends, you know, like Haridas Thakur was the Nam Acharya of the holy name, you know, somebody who was chanting so deeply. So there was no, you know, he was constantly in the association of the Lord. That is my take. But in the purport to that 195, which you were talking about, Haridas was born in a Muslim family, and he could not enter the Jagannath temple. But when he lived outside at the at the place called Cedar Bakul, where Lord Chaitanya would come and visit him. So that's why. Is there anything else you need clarity on there?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So having said all that, and what stops that? What? Sorry, I just had to decline a call. Is anybody else want to make any comments on what we just spoke? Maybe. Is Guru Premi there? I don't know who's in there. Yeah. Oh, Rene, Paramatma, Krishna. Okay. All right. Rasaraj is and all. Okay. All right. So then, okay, we could speak a little bit more on humility. Now, what is it that that causes us? What affects our humility? What hampers us to be humble? Because it's not something that you can just develop overnight. It's a whole progression. It's a progression, and we have various patterns, that we have developed over lifetimes. Generally, humble people are, they're not upset easily. They don't get angry easily, and they're very broad-minded, liberal. This is some of the qualities of somebody who is humble or has some qualities of humility. In general, when somebody is humble, he is able to see other people's situations, and then he doesn't respond in a way, even if they're doing something that you may not be able, you may not like, but he doesn't respond in an angry way. Rather, he sees the person where the person is situated, both materially and spiritually. So somebody is just like in the category of Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, their humility is on a very high level. It's extremely high, but still, they like Sanatana Goswami would listen to the people in general. He would listen to their challenges when he walked around Govardhan Hill. They would talk about various material things to him. And he was very patiently listening to them, giving them advice. So that, you don't, somebody who's at such a high level, he's still giving his time and listening very carefully to people who are less qualified than himself. Because in general, in life, we find hearing to a person who's less qualified than oneself, especially in terms of, economic and educational achievement, we may think, well, this person, he's not so highly qualified. I don't want to hear from him. But a humble person will do that. He will give that person the time, because time means love, and when one loves another person, there's so much to go with it, compassion, so many other different emotions. So these are some of the factors that you could think of. How do you deal with, like some of you are working, how do you deal with people who are tyrants in your offices? How do you deal with them? Some are employed, I guess. How do you deal with that? Perhaps Bisnath? Oh.
Haribol Prabhu.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, I just wanted to comment. Thank you for the topic. Very, very interesting. I just realized now how oblivious I was of the meaning of humility. I had the material, I was aware of the material meaning of humility, which is like We just saw it now, free from pride and arrogance. But then you alluded to the fact that Srila Prabhupada has given the meaning of humility as not hankering for the satisfaction of being honored by others. So true. But Prabhu, notwithstanding what you said, which I totally respect and concur with, but I mean, I'm sure you will agree that humility is one of the cornerstones of Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
I don't mean to elevate any devotee, but it will be remiss of me not to mention that devotees who are humble has the ability to lure, with an inverted commas, more people into our movement, and that is that is a fact, because if one if we do a cross section, through experiment and through experience, that where we found that there are certain devotees, how come, who are more, how can I say, who has the ability to win souls, to get more people in the movement. And then also one must ask, I mean, we have to be very honest about this. We got to be very, very honest. Yes, you said that yes, and which I totally concur with that. In order for one to be humble, first and foremost, one has to be totally immersed in Krishna consciousness, well and true. But then, Prabhu, we must also agree that that devotees who are humble, how come certain people are attracted to certain devotees? And please, if I'm going off at a tangent, please stop me, because I don't want to, it's not my intention to offend anybody. But I'd like to speak my heart out and say that from my personal experiences as well, people that go, I mean, devotees that go to the places of worship like the temple are more attracted to certain devotees, and that answer is because that particular devotee is of his or her humble nature. Just my comments. Perhaps we can, I don't know if it's okay with you to comment on them.
Yeah, so what you're alluding to, that some people are not humble. Or it's very clear that some people are humble and some people are not humble. And the not humble people, you get, you're bound to get upset with them. That's the way it is. That's how I'm reading it. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. If that's the way you read it, I'm reading it. So then, a devotee made a nice comment this weekend, just like when we look at, the Bhagavad-Gita has 2 verses. In the 3rd chapter, text number 35 and 1847, it is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Distraction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duty, for to follow another's path is dangerous. So sometimes a devotee, you may come to the temple and he may be, that's prescribed for him to do, but he may not do it, he may not do it perfectly. But he's doing his duty in terms of what's prescribed for him. So Krishna is saying it's better for him to do that than do somebody else's duties perfectly. So when you come along, you may see it like that, and you may see that one person is different from the other. And there's no 2 people are different, the same, because in Krishna consciousness, people are different. Every individual soul is different, and everybody's offering to Krishna is different. And it says, destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duty, for to follow another's path is dangerous. So you can see that in terms of Varna and Ashram, he's just doing his duty. But when an outsider come and think, well, this person is not humble. He's got more like a Kshatriya mode. He's got a feisty person. He tells he's very curt and blunt. I'll just give me an example. I don't know I'm on the right track answering your question. Is it okay, Babs?
A very perfect answer, Prabhu.
Yeah.
You've really put it into another perspective now. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
So the persons are on different levels in the Varnashram system, because you have this idea that everybody should be a Brahmin, because you are looking at the qualities of a Brahmin, purity, compassion, all these different qualities of a Brahmin, austerity. But then the person is doing his duty is not of a Brahmin. He's not a Brahmin by nature. You understand the point? He's still battling. He's still in the Varnashram system, and he is battling. He's doing his duty perfectly. But to you, he's not doing his duty perfectly, because you're looking. What you are thinking of, you are looking for a Brahmin, and he's not a Brahmin. So even in the other verse that it says there, in the 18th chapter, text 47, and that's also interesting. It's more or less the same thing, but where Lord Krishna is speaking, and it says, just let me get that verse, 1847. It says, it is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reaction. So by doing so, he doesn't get a reaction for doing his work. And it says, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, one should not imitate another's duty. A man who is by nature attracted to kind of work done by Sudra, meaning a laboring class, should not artificially claim to be a Brahmin, although he may have been born in a Brahmin's family. In this way, one should work according to his nature. No work is abominable if performed in the service of the Supreme Lord. So it's like for a Vaishya, and then Prabhupada give example, a Vaishya means like a merchant class. And merchant class is a cheating, they have to make profit. But Prabhupada says the merchant will cheat. He will say, oh, my dear customer, for you are making no profit. But one should know that without profit, the merchant cannot exist. So, there's different, different things are, different, like the different orders of society, the Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra, have different responsibilities, and their bodies, their characteristics and qualities are different. But then, then you think, well, this person is not humble, but he's humble. He's doing his service for Krishna. He's trying to please Krishna. But if in the event that he's trying to get fame for doing, or he wants recognition for doing the service, then that's another thing. And in the next verse, in the 1848 of that's a very interesting point which Lord Krishna makes. Every endeavor is covered by some fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work born of his own nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. And it goes on to explain various points. So every endeavor is covered by some fault. But we don't, you see, a humble person doesn't magnify faults. He's like he becomes like the bee. He magnifies the good. He doesn't, he gives more attention to the good. So in like that, you see, like if you come to the temple, like people are staying in the temple, they surrender to Krishna. They're trying to do the best, but they may not all be on the same level of Krishna consciousness. They are at different levels. So one has to be conscious of that. So they may not be as humble as you think they should be, like a Brahmin, or they may not be in that category, but still they surrender to Krishna. Is that okay, Babs?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much. You've really presented in a very succinct manner. I like your response. Thank you very much.
You see anyway, there's more to it. Okay. Does anybody want to comment on what Sir Babs has spoken about? Yeah. You see, ultimately, it's a lot dependent on the control of the senses and how the senses are controlled, how your senses are in. No, basically, to be humble, you have to be really a sense control person. That's what it is. That's what it boils down. And if you manage to control your senses, then you just like anger is always there. You're like gonna have anger. You're gonna have, even Lord Krishna gets angry. You're gonna have that. It doesn't mean that if a person gets angry, then he's not humble. Like we give you an example. I think this example will be good, Babs. We had a lady working with us. Again, I'll use my work when I was working. We're working together. Of a lady called Mrs. Miller, Cecilia Miller. And she was a very, she works in the government service for a long time, for many decades. And we knew her for a long time also. She worked with us. And whenever she, you could speak to her, but she was just so cutty, it's just like, she'll just perform an operation on you, like, you'll be just bleeding, right in her presence, because she was so direct about things. But I remember when I went to a funeral, perhaps I think you were there, we went together, we all went together.
Yes.
And I had to speak on a funeral, somehow we were called up to speak, and I was saying she was a very humble person. Because she didn't worry whether you were her friend or your enemy. She was not concerned about that, because what was correct, she would say what was correct. So she was not, in one sense, she was a humble person because she was very truthful.
Yes.
And she wasn't really concerned that, oh, I'd rather not tell him anything. I know he's wrong, but I won't tell him anything. He's so I can have a friendly relationship with him. She was beyond that. And when I remember speaking on that funeral, and then when I came down from the podium or from the stage in a church, it was in a church, and when we walked down, I met a teacher who taught her and became an inspector or a principal and he taught her and he became the principal of the school. And he said that this lady was always like that from childhood. So somebody may be like, in that case, the person is humble. But we may look at it, that this person is too direct, he tells us off, but he's not cheating you, he's being honest. So that's humility. So you have to look at it from that angle also. I think you recall that we went there, in that church in Greenwood Park.
Yes, absolutely. And just one more comment about Mrs. Miller. Yes, 100% what you say. She never sugarcoated anything. She said it like it was.
Yeah, as it is.
Maybe it might not be, palatable to the listener, but she said it like it was.
Yeah, so don't you think that's humility? Because we may be too concerned about we getting hurt. We may be too concerned. We may keep quiet. We may not tell it. But she was like very bold and open about it, and she felt, and after that she was just like nothing happened. It was just like, and she'll just talk to you normal. So it was an amazing quality. So we may, but in actual sense that a materialist in general can never be like totally humble. Because because they're under the control of the senses, the material senses. And the desire to satisfy the mind will always be there. I must be granted some recognition internally, maybe not externally. You're understanding the point? Is that clear? So, you may be, you want to satisfy the mind internally. You may not say it. So that person on the material platform cannot be totally 100% humble. But to a large degree, we could say so. They can be if they're direct about things, but still that element of humility applies to a devotee, to a Vaishnava.
Yes.
You're getting the point. It's just like somebody cooks something. I'll give you like ladies, they'll cook something and then they're waiting for you to tell, it's so nice. What do you made? You know what I mean? And then you finally say, who made this? And then the person immediately says, I made it, just waiting for, some recognition. So it's like that, it's difficult. It's very difficult, so it's there. But on the material level, it's difficult for somebody because it's, the mind is always accepting and rejecting. Yeah, that's the function of the mind. So therefore, we have to conquer the mind. And that's why I started my discussion on a complete absorption in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Is that okay? Anybody else would like to say something? This is quite interesting topic. Yeah. Like you have like over enthusiastic people, puffed up enthusiasm. Even if we are in spiritual life, and then we may try to master some verses and become, like more an academic or a scholar, and we want to show a scholarship. But that's also not being humble. Because, you may quote a lot of verses, you may know lots of things, and then you may deride people even because of your scholarship. But that's not humility. Humility is something very deep. It's about the, the feeling in your heart, how you interact with the other person, or, even if the person is less qualified than you. That's in essence what real humility is about. Yeah. So in a very immature state that you feel that you have mastered everything in devotional life, and that is, the acharyas, our spiritual preceptors or teachers talk about puffed up enthusiasm. It's called, filled up with puffed up enthusiasm. But then, because it's like not
Hare Krishna, sound check. I think we lost the Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Bhaktin Kotarapal, are you there? Gaurapremi Mataji?
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, I think we lost Prabhu. He might come back just now. Is any comments or questions from yours? Any comments, Mataji, from your side? Bhaktin Kotarapal Mataji?
No, thank you. Very interesting and very enlightening class.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Rasaraj Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Do you like to share any comments while the Prabhu joins again?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my obeisances to all of you. It's such a wonderful topic, and I really appreciate the comment that we made. I was just thinking of, a question that was asked to Raghunath Swami, and he said, it comes from practice, it's practice and practice and practice, and practice makes perfect.
Sorry.
Yes,
So,
Prabhu, Hare Krishna, welcome. Rasmal Prabhu is sharing a comment. He's almost finished.
Hare Krishna, Raghunath Prabhu. So I was just thinking of the statement, the question that was asked to Raghunath Swami, and he said it comes with practice. And, and practice makes perfect. And, it was also mentioned by Mahatma Prabhu that it's only when you can test a person's humility, by the taste that he has for the holy name. You can go on chanting and chanting and chanting. It's not easy to chant for so many hours, on end. And
Yeah,
you can test
yeah,
the
that's
person,
true.
with attachment to the holy name. Thank you.
No, that's a good point. And that's why the verse, the third verse of the Shastikam is on the level of Nishta. It's a level of steadiness, where one is kind of really quite advanced. That particular verse, always chanting the glories of Krishna. So he's humble, he's tolerant, and then only he can do these things. But if he's not tolerant, then unfortunately, he'll be on the lower level. It's not that people, it's not that you can just easily pass this, just surpass this, that level so easily. It takes a lot of practice. It does, yeah. And even you can spend your whole lifetime, you may still not reach that. That's also there. Yeah. Anybody else would like to share some comments? Yeah, we stop at 8 o'clock. Is that not right?
Yes, Prabhuji. We hope to have a few minutes of kirtan from you, Prabhu.
Okay, sure, but yeah, okay. Anybody else would like to comment on a? We're just getting warmed up on this topic. So, yeah. Is there anything? Oh, then we can have kirtan. Otherwise, it's already. Yeah, there's a few minutes.
We can request Prashana Mataji to make a comment. Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Oh, she wants to make a comment. Okay, yes, Prashana. She's on the line. Yes, Prashana, Hare Krishna to you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for the wonderful topic. From my side, being new to this path, I would like to know how to practice humility every day, being humble every day as a new member to Krishna consciousness. What do I do and how do I practice this? Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prashana. The thing is, humility is as I said, it requires a lot of practice, but it's not something that, you can say, now I'm humble, because generally a humble person never says that. I remember reading a letter when I joined the public service. One person wrote a letter and he said, "Your humble servant." So if somebody is humble, he doesn't normally say that. He shouldn't say that, because a humble person is not going to, reveal that he's humble. So in actual fact, it's a whole lifetime of practice. But you start basically understanding that Krishna is supreme, and I'm just infinitesimal or small. That's your start, which you've accepted. Then every time you bow down to Krishna, that makes you, it kind of, then you have this understanding, well, Krishna is supreme and I'm small. And then you bow down to other devotees or spiritual leaders, just like, in Indian tradition, we're meant to bow down to our parents because they are our gurus. And what happens in that case is that that makes us very humble. But unfortunately, we don't do that. There's one devotee is, Nishinga Prabhu from Clarus State. There's a devotee called Nishinga Prabhu. He lives in Clarus State. And he would bow down to his mother every day. She lived till about just close to 100. And that was his duty. Even in India, in many parts of India, just bowing down to your parents can make you humble. Just not even, just your parents themselves. And there was one devotee called Brahmananda, and Brahmananda was one of Prabhupada's disciples. So when he took initiation, when he was given his name Brahmananda, his mother was there. And Srila Prabhupada gave him an instruction that he should bow down to his parents whenever he see them, his mother specifically. So then one day he was in Florida in that area, and he decided to visit his mother, and then he rang the bell and knocked the door, and when the mother opened the door, she didn't see him. And because he was bowing down, because he followed that instruction. So the thing he commented by doing that, and taking that instruction, which Prabhupada had given to him, that he became, that his attachment from his material parents, what you could say, reduced. And his attachment to Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master and Lord Krishna, increased. So you can start at that level, but as you get deeper into it, then you'll find that there are many things that you have to work with. It's just not this aspect, but this aspect will help you to increase your attachment to the spiritual master, to the Supreme Lord. And because it's in a sense of, with the humility you do this, you offer obeisances, it'll bring you to the point of then looking deeply into all the unwanted things in the heart. Only when you start removing those unwanted things in the heart, but that'll come later. That'll come later, and we don't want to discuss it now. But as you start removing the unwanted things in the heart, then you'll be getting closer to Krishna. Then you'll be becoming more humble, more tolerant, and you can test it, how tolerant you are. When you come and see the devotees, you're not going to be angry with them. You'll see them doing something that, that's not in keeping with what you think it should be like, or they may be doing something. It's best to always not overlook, but at the same time find out and try to ascertain why a person is behaving in a particular way. But that'll come with time. It's not overnight. It'll be step by step. So firstly, you just offer obeisances, you offer respects to the deities, like that, and you think of the spiritual master, and gradually all those unwanted things in the heart, that's another chapter on its own, and you will deal with that separately. Is that okay?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you, Prishna. Are you reading Bhagavad-Gita?
Yes, I'm on chapter 11.
Really, yeah? That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we can talk more about it in other times, yeah. Is that okay? So we're going to have a quick kirtan now. Is anybody else want to comment?
Oh, we'll just request Shalina Mataji just to greet us. Mataji, is everything okay on your side? Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you for joining us.
Prabhu, if there's one thing I can say, it's very difficult to practice humility in the workplace. We all come from different backgrounds, and at times you can be humble, but a lot of the time it's something very difficult. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Oh yeah, but you see, what's so difficult? Why is it difficult? Like what aspect is difficult?
Like you said, sometimes we tend to be more qualified than the person we're talking to, and they don't want to accept our way, and then you have to sort of gently let them know that you're qualified and what you're saying is the way something should be done.
You see, yeah. There's so many things I can say, but the thing is, if like you're talking to somebody who you're more qualified than that person, or that person is more qualified than you?
I would be more qualified than them.
If you're more qualified than them, then you must learn to practice humility. You should learn to listen to them, what they are saying also, because that's an important factor. Because you see, you can learn from anybody, because Krishna can speak through anybody. And somebody who's humble will give a person, a hearing into what he's saying. Because that is another thing, there was I read in the, somewhere around in the net somewhere, where a CEO was more qualified than the subordinates that he was addressing. But but the subordinates was more experienced. You know, sometimes people have academic qualification, even if they have more experience, but still you can learn from a junior, and that takes humility, because you can learn from a junior, just like Srila Prabhupada. You know, he learned from a drunkard. I mean, he took instructions from a drunk person. Now he's a spiritual master of the Hare Krishna movement, because you know, you can, at some point you have to take that Krishna is speaking to that person. So that in that way, if you're more qualified than somebody, then it's important to hear the other person out, because you can also learn from your junior. Like, you know, when I don't know, I you know, when I was working also, I used my own work environment, and one of my functions was to check, and you know, to check whether things were done correctly. And you know, it dealt with a lot of money, and you know, it's like huge amounts of money, and we have to check everything thoroughly before we authorize things. But the person who compiled it, you know, may make a mistake, or he may do it in some different way. But I never ever marked anything incorrect. I think Babs will bear testimony to that. I never ever. I don't know, Babs, is that right?
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you something, Prabhu. I'm just telling my wife here, Shireen here, that, you know, I just want to comment on this, because you've taught me something, and you know, just for the you know, just for the others, I was your understudy when I came into HR. I mean, you taught me, you know, you taught me everything about HR. But there's one very, very, amongst other things, a paramount of importance was you taught me how not to speak to our, well, I don't like to use the word subordinate, a team member, in a condescending way. For example, if you found that a member of staff has erred in calculations, what you knew that you were 100% correct, but what you would do is you would call the team member and tell the team member, listen, you know what, I could be wrong here, and just check. I think maybe I made a mistake, and that team member will come back to you and say, no, it was my mistake. But the manner in which you did it, you know, you never did it in a condescending way. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's important. Yeah, I think Babs completed the answer. Thank you very much, Babs.
Thank you.
So I think we can have a short kirtan. Is that
Prabhuji,
okay?
thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Prabhu, we just want to acknowledge Babs, Prabhu, for the topic. Prabhu, thank you so much for giving us the topic for today. We really appreciate it. Hare Krishna.
I didn't have a chance to look at this thing because I only got back, was in a funeral from the morning, and we only got back here at 5:30, 6 or something, and then I couldn't really look at it. But it was really good talking about the subject matter. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And we have a comment. Mataji made a comment. Gaurav Premi Mataji made a comment. She said, wonderful discussion. So she appreciates it, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you, Gaurav Premi. Yeah.
We hope to have more regular classes from you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
we
your
could,
time.
yeah, we could discuss other things. Yes, sure, we could, yeah.
So if anybody has a topic to suggest for the next class, you can let us know. And we'll ask Raghunath Prabhu to discuss with us.
For sure, yeah, we could discuss. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
All right, thank you. I think it's late now. We'll close now.
Just a few minutes of kirtan, Prabhu, just to purify us, you know.
Okay. I'll bring my cassette.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll bring my cassette. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So thank you very much, everybody. Hare Krishna.